You're tuned into the Spot Up Pod, the official podcast of the Spot Up Shot newsletter. I'm your host, Paul Garcia. In today's episode, going through the latest Spurs roster moves and looking into their remaining available roster spots. Also, checking in on how Dylan Harper, Carter Bryant, David Jones Garcia, Riley Minix, and Harrison Ingram have played so far in the Summer League. All right, so I want to go through where the Spurs currently stand with their roster and looking at some of their open roster spots. So I had put up an emergency pod when the Spurs had traded for Kelly Olynyk, so that's over on the spotupshot.com. It's over on the Spot Up Pod's YouTube feed and also all the podcast channels. Then the Spurs re-signed Jordan McLaughlin recently. He officially re-signed on Saturday to a veteran. We're expecting a veteran minimum contract. The contract details have not returned. So I'll just talk about McLaughlin real quick because I didn't talk about him here on the Spot Up Pod. So McLaughlin should have a similar role to last season where he's one of the reserve guards on the roster, where he's basically only going to come into a game most likely if one of the guards is in foul trouble, if someone gets hurt during a game or it's for several games, or if the game's already decided where it's in blowout territory where the Spurs are either ahead or behind in the game. Bringing McLaughlin back, he's a veteran who knows the Spurs' system after spending a few months with San Antonio. He also has some on-court chemistry with some of the players from last season's team that he got to play with for a few months there. And then also, again, he only signed most likely for a veteran minimum, which is $3 million. So again, he's not having he's back as a veteran there on a veteran minimum salary, so he's not really impacting the cap sheet too much, especially that the Spurs are pretty far under the luxury tax and under the first apron hard cap. Now, the Spurs, with McLaughlin back, do have 13 players on standard NBA contracts, and that means that they have 2 open standard NBA roster spots. They also don't technically right now have any players signed to two-way contract spots, so that means they have 3 openings on the two-way roster as well. And I do want to note that I'm recording this as of July 13th, Sunday evening, in case things change. So with those 2 open roster spots, the Spurs, at least by opening night, they most likely need to fill one of those spots to get to at least the minimum of 14 players on standard contracts. And then, like I said, they have those 3 open two-way spots. So what I want to focus on first is talking about those 2 standard roster spots that they have right now. So here are the players they have at each position right now on the roster. So what I'm calling ball handling guards, players who initiate the offense, kind of bring the ball up the floor, get the team into their sets. There is De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, and now McLaughlin has been re-signed. So again, they have 4 ball handling guards, I would say, on the roster. So they have they have a lot of depth there at the guard spot. On the wing position, they have Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and Julian Champagnie. Amongst forwards, they have Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Sohan, and Carter Bryant. And then amongst bigs, they have, of course, Wemby, Luke Cornett, and Kelly Olynyk. So again, they have about, for each of those positions, guards, wings, forwards, and bigs, they have about 3 players per position right now. So again, we'll see what position they look for, with those last 2 roster spots, considering that they already have a lot of guards on the roster. So what financial tools do they have to sign these players or acquire them in trades? They have $3.1 million left of the non-tax MLE that was mainly used to sign Luke Cornett for $11 million in year 1 of his first-year contract. They also have the full $5.1 million biannual exception. I do want to note that if they use that exception, then next offseason in the summer 2026, they do not get that exception back. They can't use it again until 2027. And then also, of course, they still have veteran minimum contract exceptions as well to use on veteran minimum players. So who are some players that fit, for those last 2 spots? I wrote a piece back on July 10th called The Spurs' Open Roster Spots, where I looked at some players that were still available. Again, as of July 13th, Sunday evening, these players have not signed with other teams either, so they're still available as far as unsigned free agents. So one thing to note about these free agents is that if they're going to be signing with San Antonio, they're most likely looking at a reserve role where they're probably not going to be in the 10-man rotation, or if they want to get in the 10-man rotation, they got to compete with some players who maybe some minutes they can take from, such as off the bench, like Julian Champagnie, maybe Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, and of course Carter Bryant's going to be there fighting for minutes as well. So in terms of guards, they're pretty much set at the guard position, but they've had a standout guard in the summer league, and his name is David Jones Garcia. So again, there's an option to bring Garcia in on a standard contract. If they do that, then his likely role would be a reserve guard on the bench for the Spurs. But he could try to challenge Champagnie for some minutes as the backup shooting guard there off the bench. And so what it would take to sign Garcia, most likely a veteran minimum contract. So David Jones Garcia is there as the player that I see it would be a good fit at the guard role. As far as wings, there's Garrison Matthews of the Atlanta Hawks. He's still unsigned right now. His role would be a reserve wing, coming off the bench. If he really wants to get minutes, he probably has to challenge Julian Champagnie or Keldon Johnson for some minutes off the wing. He's a shooter from outside, is Matthews. His contract projection I have is a veteran minimum to $4 million range. I just will say, I think for him, he'd probably want to find a spot where there's not so many other wing players in front of him to get some minutes. And then there's also Johnny Juzang, who I think would be a good fit with the Spurs. He recently played with the Utah Jazz. They had waived him or didn't guarantee his contract. So his role would also be a reserve wing. He'd probably sign for the veteran minimum. And for Juzang, I think he would, as a young player, he'd probably understand that he'd probably be in a reserve role, only coming into games when a wing gets into foul trouble, there's an injury or a game's pretty much decided. Then there's some forwards I wrote down here. So first is Amir Coffey, formerly of the Clippers. His role would be a reserve wing or forward. He could challenge Champagnie, Keldon, and Sohan for some minutes. I have his range as a low amount of veteran minimum to a high amount of $5.1 million, which is the biannual exception. Again, for someone like Coffey, I think that he wants to go to a situation where there's not so many players ahead of him in the depth chart, so where he wants to get some minutes. So again, I don't see Coffey as likely as maybe someone like Johnny Juzang. Then there's Caleb Houstan out of the formerly of the Orlando Magic. His role would also be a reserve wing, a shooter from outside. He could try to challenge Julian Champagnie for minutes, but again, most likely a reserve role for Houston. Maybe come in for spot situations when the Spurs need to space the floor. His contract projection looks like veteran minimum is what I'm seeing here. And then Riley Minix, currently on the Spurs' Summer League team and formerly on a two-way contract. If the Spurs want to bump him up to a standard roster spot, I could totally see that. So his role would be a reserve role for forwards in case they need an option to spread the floor. Or again, if they need an extra forward on the roster. And I really just think he fills more so that Mamu role, the Sandro Mamukelashvili role, where he comes in spot situations, or if there's some injuries, he can come in and fill some minutes for a certain number of games. And for someone like Riley Minix, they could probably his contract projection looks like the veteran minimum. And then lastly, bigs. Again, they have a lot of bigs already. They have Kelly Olynyk, they have Victor, they have Luke Cornett. So I think just a veteran leadership kind of guy here. Bismack Biyombo, who had some experience with the Spurs last year to end the season. His role, he kind of understands that he's probably not going to play at all unless, again, there's a situation where someone's in foul trouble or there's an injury. So, again, he would just be a good reserve big for the locker room, bring that veteran leadership, come in when he needs to. And then also, to sign him, you could sign him for a veteran minimum contract. So, again, those are some players that I think that are still out there, still unsigned free agents, and some players on the Summer League squad that could fit with San Antonio in those last two reserve roles. As far as the two-way spots, the Spurs do have 3 open two-way spots. Riley Minix and Harrison Ingram do have qualifying offers to return to the Spurs on two-way contracts. All they have to do is sign those qualifying offers, and they get to come back to the Spurs as two-way players. But maybe they're seeing if they can try to earn a standard roster spot. Let's just say that Minix and Ingram do sign their qualifying offers, and they end up returning to San Antonio as two-way players. Well, then that means the Spurs have 1 open two-way spot left. Here, I think that spot could either go to David Jones Garcia if the Spurs don't want to sign him to a standard roster spot, or let's say they do sign Jones Garcia, or somebody else signs Jones Garcia. Then I think another player who's kind of stood out at Summer League is Jameer Nelson Jr. Maybe give him that final two-way spot there. So again, that's just a quick look at the open spots the Spurs currently have. Again, 2 standard roster spots are open and 3 open two-way spots. And again, as of Sunday evening, those are the vacancies on the roster. We'll see how they fill those spots out as the offseason progresses. All right, next up, I want to go through a Summer League check-in. Again, I am recording this on Sunday evening, July 13th. So this is basically all the Summer League games I'm going to talk about are summarization from the California Classic all the way to Saturday, July 12th, when the Spurs played the Dallas Mavericks, Cooper Flag and the Mavericks, and the Spurs won that game. So let's first talk about Dylan Harper. So as of Sunday, he had only played in 1 Summer League game against Dallas. So again, it is a small sample size, just 1 game. On offense first, let's talk about his offense. He ends up with 16 points in 17 minutes, 2 assists and 2 turnovers. Just some notes that I wrote down from his observations. He just gets into the paint at will, whether on drives, whether out of pick and roll action. It just feels like he can just get 2 feet in the paint, deep into the paint. With his speed, just his size, just his craftiness with his dribbling and his ball handling skills. So again, that's one thing I noted from him. And then once he gets inside to the lane, he has his floaters, he has some layups, he's able to draw fouls, and so he has a little spin move as well. So you just saw, for me, that the big takeaway there was just how much he can just quickly get into the paint, get 2 feet in there, and that matches what 2 other players on the Spurs roster are able to do, which are their other 2 lead attack guards, which are Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox. So again, there's three guards on the Spurs roster who are going to be able to get into the paint and either create for themselves or create for others pretty seamlessly here. His 3-point shot, he went over 4 from 3, but again, that's kind of understandable. This is his first game in a long time playing, so it's understandable that he didn't have a rhythm from outside. He did play point for most of the night, but there was some segments of the game where he shared the backcourt with David Jones Garcia, another point guard or combo guard, and then also Jameer Nelson Jr. And so this is something I noted about in my scouting report of Harper, is that he is okay playing off ball for segments of the game. He did that at Rutgers, sharing the floor with another point guard at times, and so I think that he's going to be fine whether he needs to share the backcourt with Stephon Castle or De'Aaron Fox, or if the Spurs put like a mini 3-guard lineup out there with Fox, Castle, and Harper. I think he's going to be fine sharing the backcourt, figuring out when to be on the ball, how to play off the ball. He had a really nice cut for a layup playing off the ball, where he did like a hesitation and then a cut inside, and his teammate found him for a layup. He also had some passes of setting up Riley Minix in the right corner for going to his left for an open 3, and then also he set up one of his bigs running the floor in transition for a dunk. One of his only turnovers, one of his few turnovers, was when he kind of threw a full court alley-oop pass to Carter Bryant, and again, that was their first time getting on the floor together in a summer league game, so it's understandable that their chemistry is not quite there just yet. So again, offensively, it's just a quick summarization of Harper in his first game against the Mavericks. Now let's go to defense. So he ends up with 6 rebounds in this game, 2 steals, 1 block, and 5 fouls. So some things I noted was that he moved very well laterally, really putting pressure on the ball handlers, picking them up at times full court or at least near the half court line, being very physical with them. At times that did lead to some foul trouble, like I mentioned, 5 fouls, but it was good to see that he was really taking pride in his defense, really getting down, trying to hound those players in the backcourt. And again, that's going to be something that the Spurs want, is that point of attack defense of Harper, of Stephon Castle, of De'Aaron Fox, really making it tough for players to bring the ball in the backcourt up the court, just making it physically exhausting for those players. That way, it makes teams start their offense even later in the shot clock. So that's something that Harper showed that he did there, and Coach Mike Noyes of the Summer League team definitely highlighted that. He also showed his athleticism on one of his blocks where he's chasing it down a guard in transition, and he blocks it, gets really high and blocks it with one hand with a nice left-handed block. He also got 2 steals. One was when Cooper Flagg had snagged a rebound. He thought he was about to take off the other way, but Harper kind of went in there for a backdoor steal, almost like Jose Alvarado type steal, for a steal in the backcourt toward the end of halftime. And then also in the second half, when he was defending an inbound play, there was a big trying to catch the ball, and Harper went up there and still got that steal and then took off the other end. He got fouled pretty hard and ended up going to the free throw line. So again, it was just one game, but again, we'll see how many more games the Spurs let him play in Summer League. I know that in Summer League, the top 5 picks usually don't play a lot of games, so maybe 1 or 2 more games might be it for Dylan Harper. We'll see what happens there. Let's move on to Carter Bryant. So he's played in 4 games between both the Vegas and California Summer Leagues. He's averaged 23 minutes per game. So on offense, 5.8 points. Shooting splits are 21% from the floor, 18% from 3, 88% from the free throw line, 1 assist and 3.2 turnovers. His outside shot hasn't been there yet, but his release and his form do look good. He's mentioned that he is getting used to the further 3-point line at the NBA level. So we got to remember that in college, it's about 22 feet. At the NBA level, if he's not in the corners, it's going to be at 24 feet. So again, he is kind of getting used to that range. A lot of his shots, if you watch them, they have been short, but I think that they're going to eventually start falling because, like I said, he was a really good shooter in college from what I saw on the tape. In different kind of situations, like I said, he can go up and down the floor without touching the ball at all. And then all of a sudden he's ready to shoot from 3. So I think that with the time he's going to get in the summer to work on his shot, plus some training camp and preseason, I think we'll see some gradual progression from him. When driving inside, that's kind of been more the issue where I've seen where he's still kind of going to have to learn it and develop there. So at times when he tries to like pump fake the defender and then try to drive inside, he's been caught a few times with traveling violations, sometimes forcing some contested layups and mid-rangers in traffic. And then that's going to be the biggest area where he probably has to work on is when he moves with the ball in his hands into the paint on his drives. And then one thing I do want to note is I listened to his interview after that game against the Mavericks. Regarding his shot, he's very confident. He said this. I want to quote him. He said, "I shot 0 for 7 today. I got another one on Tuesday. I get to go and compete. So he's not worried about, going 0 for 7 or 0 for 6 from 3. He knows that he's a good shooter. He has a lot of confidence in himself. He feels like he's one of the better shooters coming out of this draft. And so that just shows that, dude, even though he's not making shots right now, he knows they're going to eventually fall. He has a lot of belief in the work that he's put in. And like I said, on the tape from college, I do think that's going to eventually fall. He has a good looking jump shot, good form on his shot, ready to shoot in different kind of situations. I basically, like, if he sticks to his on offense, if he sticks to his 3-and-D role early in preseason and early in the season, I think that he has a chance to crack the rotation because of the next area of the floor that I'm about to talk about, and that is his defense. So defensively, in his summer league games, he's averaging 3.8 rebounds, 0.2 steals, and 1.5 blocks, and also 4.2 fouls. This is definitely the area where he's going to really test the coaching staff because, he has been a monster in some of these games defensively, at least against summer league competition, and we want to throw out some of the top picks in this draft, such as Cooper Flagg when he had to guard him for a majority of that game. So just some things I'm noting here from my observations. He's guarding multiple positions, full court at times, blowing up passing lanes, having really good denied defense, just getting physical into guys' chest. Just being, very, very physical with players that he's just swarming them. He feels like he's all over the floor during most possessions. He's been a really good help defender, whether that's like closing out and helping contest threes from the opponent or, taking away driving lanes or switching multiple positions in one possession. And then, of course, he's had some really athletic help blocks where he gets him like off the glass. And so, Carter Bryant, just defensively, he's putting a lot of pressure on that coaching staff to have to consider giving him real minutes, even though his offense still has a ways to go early on in the season. Regarding guarding Cooper Flagg, one thing I saw in the first half was that, Cooper had a tough time getting by him and his one-on-one isolations against Bryant. Bryant, just like really locked him down. The Mavs in the second half, they did a better job of getting Cooper free from Bryant by using screens, using picks, DHOs, dribble handoffs to give Cooper some room to operate and get someone else switched on him, or to get Bryant trailing behind him on a lot of his possessions. So that's exactly what they had to do, the Mavs, to get Cooper going because one-on-one against Carter Bryant was really difficult for Dallas. He also helps out on the boards, and then sometimes he can get a little too aggressive at times with his physical defense, which can lead to foul trouble. But that was really in like one of the main the first summer league games. But other than that, his fouls haven't been too much of an issue. During an ESPN broadcast, Spurs general manager Brian Wright was on the broadcast, and Carter was having a really good first half defensively. And he said this. He said he did mention how Brian has been a menace defensively. So right now, through these, again, just 4 games of summer league so far that I've seen him in, I don't think he's still yet in the 10-man rotation, but I think he's going to get his chance in the training camp and preseason to figure. I want to see how he plays against guys that are in regular rotation minutes for the NBA level, and then if his shot starts to fall, then guys like I've mentioned before, players like Julian Champagnie, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, they have to watch out because he's going to start just the level of defense that he's bringing out there right now. If that translates in October, then he's ready to get some minutes right now. So again, we'll see what happens there with Carter Bryant so far through 4 games. All right, the next player I want to talk about is one of the standouts from Summer League. This is David Jones Garcia. He's played in 5 Summer League games so far. He started in 4 of them, and he's averaged 24.7 minutes. On offense, he's been a 20-plus per game scorer. He's averaging 22.6 points in Summer League, shooting 56% from the floor, 60% from 3, 83% from the free throw line, 3.2 assists to 3.8 turnovers. So this guy is a 3-level scorer, as we've seen so far through his few games in the Summer League. He gets 20 points, just gets 20 points each game, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. From the three-point line, like I said, I couldn't believe that he's shooting 60%, but every 3 I watch him shoot, it's rare to see him miss. He's making almost all of his open spot-up threes when his teammates drive inside and kick out threes to him. He's shown the ability to make some sidestep threes. He's also the Spurs have ran this double drag screen at half court where 2 bigs set a double drag screen near half court. That gives David Jones Garcia room to go to his right, and then if the bigs dropping, which they have been doing, the bigs on the other team, well then he pulls up and makes pull up threes. He's done that in several Summer League games that I've watched him so far. In the half court, he's very calm, very fluid about getting to his spots in the mid range and pulling up comfortably, whether that's with the crossover or just going straight up into the mid range jumper. On his pick and rolls and drives, he gets into the paint. He's setting up his bigs who are cutting. He's finding shooters outside. He also gets layups or gets the free throw line. And then, sometimes though he can't get caught in that traffic inside, and that's usually where his turnovers happen, where sometimes he does lose the ball. Teams, swarm him. And so there are times that he will turn it over whenever he gets deep into the paint. one thing you already see from him, and again, this is just summer league, is that some teams in the second half, when he's going off for 14, 15 points in the first half, they're already setting second half traps against him just to get the ball out of his hands at times. He just looks really comfortable out there being the point guard or playing off the ball at the shooting guard position. Again, he played alongside Dylan Harper in the game. He's played multiple games alongside Jameer Nelson Jr. and also Amari Moore before he ended up going overseas to play after playing with the Spurs' summer league team. And then one thing Dylan Harper said he calls him a bucket getter. That's his nickname for David Jones Garcia. So I do want to warn that it is just summer league competition, but again, against summer league competition, I mean, this guy is really standing out on the floor. Reminds me a lot of some of those Spurs players who really broke out in summer league, such as Gary Neal, Bryn Forbes, Jonathan Simmons. Some of those players really had good summer leagues, and they ended up earning a roster spot down the road with San Antonio. On defense, 5.2 rebounds, 1.6 steals, 0 blocks, and 1.4 fouls. He can be aggressive on the ball, putting pressure on the ball handler and sniffing out passing lanes. That's what I've seen him do so far. He helps out on the glass. I mean, for being a guard, he's always near the rim for some reason, and that's good that he's staying in those vicinities. He also helps on the offensive glass at times. And then also off ball, he can lose his man. There's sometimes when he can lose his man off times, at times when I've seen him off ball. So again, with how well he's played so far, I would not be surprised if the Spurs give him either a standard roster spot or a two-way contract spot, or if not the Spurs, then maybe someone else. I mean, I almost wonder if that's where he's at right now with just how well he's playing is, maybe the Spurs have offered or a team has offered two-way spots for him, but maybe he's trying to find a team that's going to give him a standard roster spot and where there's not as many options in the backcourt for that team, so that way he gets a chance to maybe crack the rotation. Because with San Antonio, like I mentioned, he'd probably be deep on the reserve in a reserve role because they already have Stephon Castle, they already have De'Aaron Fox, they already have Dylan Harper, and so yeah. So but I mean, yeah, David Jones Garcia has been one of the breakout players from the Spurs' summer league team. Next up, let's move on to Riley Minix. He's played in 3 games so far at Summer League, 21.3 minutes. On offense, 10.3 points. His shooting splits are 52% from the floor, 46% from 3, 100% from the free throw line, 1 assist and 0.7 turnovers. One thing I'm just calling, Minix right now is he's an automatic 3-point shooter where it almost surprises me if it's like an open spot at 3 if he doesn't make it. It's like a shock to me. So again, the ones that I have seen him move is more so when the Spurs are trying to get him moving off of screen action when he doesn't quite get his feet set, should I say. That's where I've seen him miss a few threes. Also on offense, he keeps the ball moving, and at times when he does drive inside, he finds his teammates. He also throws in some pump fakes to draw some fouls. And then sometimes, though, his when he's driving the ball, that can result in some turnovers. So like I mentioned, he can kind of play that Mamu role for the Spurs if they need, whether he's in Austin or if they sign him to a standard contract spot. On defense, 4 rebounds, 0.3 steals, 0 blocks, and 2.7 fouls. One thing I'll just note is that he does hustle on the defensive end. He tries his best to stay with his man. He looks like he's okay guarding 3s and 4s. But again, if you have him out there, you're going to mainly have him out there more so for his offensive capability. Again, I could see either a standard spot for Minix with the veteran minimum contract, or maybe the Spurs bring him back on a 2-way contract if he signs his qualifying offer. All right, the last player let's talk about is Harrison Ingram. So he's played in all 5 Summer League games for the Spurs, 18.1 minutes per game. On offense, 4.8 points, 27% shooting from the floor, 29% shooting from 3, 80% from the foul line, 2.8 assists, and 1 turnover. I guess one of the things you see from Ingram on the offensive end is he's better at being a connector on the offense, getting the ball moving, finding his teammates, whether it's out on the break, whether it's in the half court, driving in sometimes, finding teammates at the 3-point line. So I think that's one of the pluses for him on offense is his passing ability. He reads the floor pretty well. Scoring wise, that's where he's having his issues. Struggling to shoot from outside, and then also he kind of forces a lot of shots inside when he tries to drive into the rim, drive at the basket, should I say. So again, that's where he needs a little bit more work is on the offensive end. On defense, 5.8 rebounds, 1.6 steals, 0.2 blocks, and 2.4 fouls. He is active and hustles for rebounds there on the boards. He gets low and really puts in a lot of effort on his one-on-one defense whenever he's guarding someone one-on-one in isolation. He has active hands. He doesn't foul too much, and then he can also switch pretty well between different positions on defense. Right now, again, I do see Ingram as more so an option to probably stay as a 2-way player where maybe he signs his qualifying offer and stays with the Spurs, or since July 13th has now passed, the Spurs cannot just pull his qualifying offer. He would have to mutually agree with them to pull his qualifying offer for him to become an unrestricted free agent. So that kind of wraps up, again, just where the Spurs' roster stands and how a few of their Summer League games have gone. I'm highlighting some of the players on the roster. My next episode will probably come up after Summer League concludes to get my final observations on all the players in Summer League. And then, of course, I will put out an emergency episode if there is any kind of breaking news between now and that time. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Spotted Pod. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a rating on your favorite podcast apps and our YouTube channel. The Spotted Pod is recorded and produced by Paul Garcia. The music for this episode was written by Vincent Garcia and Paul Garcia. Thank you for listening and have a great day.